All right, I can just envision that band playing with Mildred up there playing the snare drums or the lead guitar, and just for everybody in Columbanner, it'd be a big deal. All right, Rob Brown, Ronnie Sanders, executive producer Brendan Martin. We're going to come up with a name for the show, Ronnie. You sent me some great ones, and we're going to think about it. We got a really special guest, man. It's one I grew up with. He's a little bit older than me, but he changed the narrative on Auburn football. Coming out of the last half of the 70s, Randy Campbell joins us, and topic of the day, one of the big ones is, why has Auburn not recognized their national championships? They got as many as 10, if you count them the way I do, and count them the way they do over in West Alabama. They got 18. They could probably claim 27. Randy, first off, like Brendan was saying about affiliation, if you know Auburn, you know Randy Campbell. You know the Santa Freeze when it blew up, you know the Copper Kettle. There's a lot of things you know. I remember as a kid, you went to Morgan Academy, I think, in Hartselle, Alabama. And you were at Auburn, 79 to 83. And in my opinion, I was in New Orleans January 2nd, 1984 at the Fairmont Hotel after the game. And my parents were stupid enough to give me a credit card for a Christmas present. And I spent every penny of it buying drinks, celebrating a national championship.
Yeah.
And then the next day, on the way home at the Hardee's in Pineapple, Alabama on Interstate 65, at 5 o'clock, they made the announcement. And I threw my double meat cheeseburger against the Hardee's in disgust. Take over, Ron. Take over, Randy.
Hey, I don't know what I had to eat, but I think I threw it up. I was on the same interstate coming back that you were on.
That's right.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, Nebraska's supposed to be the greatest team that ever walked on a blade of grass.
Yeah.
And they're ranked number 1 and they get beat. And Texas, you know, who beat us, lost to Georgia in the Cotton Bowl 10-9. We were 3rd. And we win our game against a really good Michigan team. They were a top 10 team. I think they were 9-2 when we played them. But if I remember right, I think both of their losses were by like 1 point and 2 points in the last 30 seconds of the game or something. So they were a fantastic team. Yeah. And, you know, we celebrated a little on Bourbon Street that night. We thought we won the national championship too.
We did.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We did win a national championship. The New York Times said so, and since then, about 5 or 6 other people have.
Yeah. I mean, Ronnie, you know, you growing up as a kid over in, Fort Payne?
Fort Payne, right.
You know, you remember that, and it's like it's like it was yesterday. And I got a lot of people watching that. I mentioned the topic today. Why not?
Well, especially nowadays. I mean, you know, there was no college football playoff. There wasn't even a Bowl Alliance. And so, you know, I mean, even the 93 season, you know, I mean, Auburn didn't play in the SEC championship game, but again, it's been what, 30 over 30 years now. What was that? 93, 03, 13, 20. Yeah. So over 30 years, getting old. But you know, it's been over 30 years now. I mean, college football is way different now than it was then. So I think it's past time to recognize those.
Randy,
Absolutely.
I mean, you talk about that 83. You know what was crazy? The morning of the Sugar Bowl, Knight Ridder, 32 of the 61 writers came out publicly, and it was stated that if number 5 Miami beat number 1 Nebraska, they would leapfrog them over everybody. You know when that happened? 1977, when Notre Dame went from 5th to 1st, and they claimed that made them the national championship when they beat Texas in 77. That was heartbreaking. And Alabama beat Ohio State 38-7 and got screwed out of a title. Now, It's not a bash Alabama at all like that, but it's time Auburn people quit worrying about what those other folks think about what Auburn's doing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't. This has nothing to do with Alabama at all. And, you know, I'm so torn that in some ways, we're not claiming anything. We've already won those championships.
Right.
It's in the NCAA record book.
Yeah.
And in 2014, my good friend and former athletic director, Jay Jacobs, put it in the game program. And it's been in the game program every year. It says, it's a little weird. It says Auburn's NCAA record book national champions, but it lists 5 teams.
Yeah.
And it's been on the Auburn website for many, many years. And so in some regards, I feel like we've been recognizing it. We just haven't celebrated it yet, So I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a team reunion from 1983 and we got national championship rings and, and we proudly wear them. And, I don't know, it's just such I feel like, especially in today's world where, marketing, recruiting, and we're our own worst enemy in that we're putting limits on ourselves that nobody else puts on us. Most of the other schools are touting their accomplishments to the nth degree. So you're a kid from West Virginia or Pennsylvania, and you come to Auburn for a recruiting visit, and you find out we've won 2 national championships. You go to Ole Miss and they've won 3. You go to Tennessee and they've won 6. And the kid says, well, I'm going to go to Tennessee because they got a better history of winning national championships. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing this to ourselves and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Ronnie.
Well, Randy, I agree with you, 100%. And I've been an advocate for a number of years now for going ahead and, recognizing those. As you said, they've already been, there's no claiming them. They've already been won.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you a cool story. So before we had this reunion, and it was the last year or two of Coach Dye's life, I called Richard Billingsley. I didn't call him. I emailed him. I found his email address on the internet because I wanted to know what he thought. I've never met the man.
Yeah.
I send Richard an email. He responds to me and he said, I've been wondering how long it was going to take for someone from Auburn to contact me. That's what he said. Yeah. And he and I had some great conversations. The Billingsley report was part of the BCS championship. He's had a statistic-based computer generated national champion and retroactive all the way back. And he was fascinating. And he told me absolutely not only should Auburn recognize it, but Auburn actually was the best team and should have won the AP and the UPI. But that's not even, we can't change that. And I'm not even trying to say that we were better than Miami, although we were. But
yeah.
This is all about, there is no standard for national championships. There's no really official national champion. There's all these selectors that the NCAA scrutinizes and recognizes, and then they put them in their book. And so we're in the book like by 6 or 7 of these selectors. So I don't get it. I really don't. And
Randy, yeah. I'll throw this one at you. You remember in 1983, the first game or two of the season, Miami got beat by Florida?
28-3, I think.
Yeah. And remember, Florida put bumper stickers out that said Florida 28, national champions 3.
Yeah.
And it was my best friend from childhood who was at Alabama when they won the 315th game to break Staggs' record.
Yeah.
He's the one who came up with the bumper sticker 28-17 equaled 315.
Yeah.
He sold a bunch of them. Has a lot of drinking money out in Tuscaloosa back then.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, and it's like this. You think about the branding. Remember Pitt when Jackie Sherrill took over for Johnny Majors?
Yeah.
They had inside the stadium. Remember they had those national championship years, like 10 or 11 of them. A&M had a really good summer after they joined the SEC. They won 2 national championships in June and July. And Ole Miss, I've been to Vaught Hemingway to close to 60 games over the year. I live in Memphis. I've been to 248 Auburn games, I think. But they claimed 3.
Yeah.
And I think one of them was by the Elks Lodge out on Highway 7, the Holly Springs Highway. But they'll claim it. But why? both of you're a player. I didn't play. A lot of people in my family have graduated from Auburn, and everybody asked this question: why not now, Ronnie?
Well, I think that John Cohen and whoever else is in charge at Auburn really should sit down sooner rather than later and make that happen. I don't think, Randy, I think you make a great point. I mean, you're putting up 2 national championships in the stadium, and what 83 should be recognized. 2004, and there's an argument about 93, but as you said, there's no standard prior to
1913,
1910,
1910,
and 1914, 1932.
And God knows, back then, the national media certainly was not watching all those games.
Yeah,
because they weren't on TV.
Yeah, Georgia Tech claims 4. So tell me something. Who's got a better tradition of football historically? Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn? Because according to this, we're at the bottom of that group.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And we could change it. This is getting in the weeds a little bit, but we're not even consistent in our own media. I mean, before I knew we were having this call, and I know that the 5 of these teams have been recognized since 2014 in the game program. And this past fall, Jay Jacobs and I were talking about it, and I went and found a program to make sure it was still in there.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah.
If you look, I looked on the internet today, and the latest media guide I could find was from 2022. And in that media guide, you can go year by year. And when you get to 1983, it's at the top in orange letters, it says national champions. And 1993, it says national champions. I noticed on 2004, it didn't say it there. And I think it's because it's not in the NCAA record book, but in the text below, it said it. It said it recognized which one they won. But there's another section on Auburn's website called Auburn Traditions, National Champions. And they say we've won 23 across all sports, and it only lists 2 for football. So you got a media guide saying one thing. That section of the website says something different. And I know I've seen in the past 10 years some other section of the website that lists 5.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's not very consistent. It sure would be nice if they just did them all and hung banners in the stadium and celebrated it. And every time we play a game, and our sports information department's talking to the TV crew, they emphasize we've won whatever, if it's 5, if it's 7, if it's 9, if it's 10, whatever it is, this is what we've done.
Yeah.
Not 2.
Yeah. I mean, the National Football Foundation recognizes 93.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And say what you want to say. The team went undefeated, and certainly, didn't play in the SEC championship game, didn't play in a national championship game, but only team in the country that was undefeated. And I think there's not recognizing 83 and 2004 is just beyond idiotic in my opinion.
The NCAA is a little shaky these days, I realize, but they are still the governing body of college football, right?
For now, yes.
And their research says that the outfit that named the 93 team national championships is a credible outfit. Mm-hmm. And they're in the NCAA record book.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you have to do.
It's never too late. I mean, I remember no one had a better summer than Alabama did in the summer of 1983. They won 5 national championships. Remember, it was, I don't know, Steve White, Larry Townsend, the sports information director. I still call them SIDs because I think of Housel, Buddy Davidson, Reba, Mel Pulliam, Dwight Johnson. That's who I got to work for in high school in my freshman year, till David said, "You can't cheer in the press box." I said, "Well, I'm out. I'm going to the drunk tank with my Pledge brothers." Yeah. But the point is, if Alabama can claim 1941, when they lost to Vanderbilt 21-0 and Mississippi State, and that's the only SEC title Mississippi State's won in their history, 1941, a week before the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. Okay? Japanese, whatever. But my point is, Animal House kind of a little shade. Germans, forget it. He's on a roll. But if they can claim 1941 with 2 losses and 32 services, I looked up and did the research. That's why I wanted you. This is great having you on here because you know it. You lived it. 32 services awarded it to the University of Minnesota in 1941. 1 service awarded it to Alabama. Now, we know Alabama's got great tradition. That's not what this is about.
Right.
Then for God's sakes, Auburn beat 4 or 5 teams. I was up there in 1983, man. The week after that Texas lost 20-7, I go up there and I meet my family, everybody from Roanoke came over. I'll never forget number 19, Trey Gaines out of Cairo, Georgia, returned that punt about 81 yards.
Yeah.
Man, it was crazy up there. My mother got into a shouting match with some Tennessee fans that were in there clogging on the strip, yelling at obscenities about Auburn. And my dad said, "Shirley, that's enough. There's about 500 of them and there's 6 of us." But that year, and you beat you beat Michigan. And everybody says, "Well, you didn't beat them 42-7. How many national championships have teams won by 1 point? And back in the old days, you even lost. Yeah. You lost the bowl game, and they gave it to you before you lost, and you still got it. There's no excuse for Auburn not to recognize it.
And the team that won the national championship in 2003, in 1983, they got beaten badly by Florida, and then lost to Nebraska beating Nebraska on a 2-point conversion, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, actually, all Tom Osborne had to do was kick the extra point, and Nebraska wins it. I don't know why he went for 2. That was a dumb move.
Bet.com.
Yeah. Now back then and for some time after that, you could look up statistics that would show that our schedule in 1983 was the 5th hardest schedule ever played in college football. And then this is at the end of the season after everybody's played their games.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is the team that had the hardest, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th hardest, none of them even had a winning record. Wow. And a couple of them only won 1 or 2 games. And we won 11, having the 5th hardest schedule in college football. Now I'm sure it's not anywhere close to that now because Auburn has had to play Georgia and Alabama every year for the last 10 years when they both have been the best they've ever been.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of Auburn teams now that have played probably a harder schedule statistically than what we played, back then. But I don't know. I really don't. I almost think that nobody wants to sit down and talk about it and have a real conversation. They just want to put their head in the sand. And, I can see our athletic director now saying, well, why didn't the prior 2 ADs do it? If they didn't do it, why should I do it? And then I've had people ask me, well, why didn't Jay do it? And I said, well, Jay did. He is the one that put it in the game program, and he's the one that put it on the website. But if you know Jay Jacobs, he's a very humble person. He was on that team. Now, if you're a senior in high school and you're running for class president, do you vote for yourself? Are you that kind of person? Yeah. Jay would never do that. And so I think – now, he's never told me this. This is just my opinion. But I think Jay is such a humble person that he just didn't feel totally right about going the full distance because it would benefit him in some way. And that's, that's just my opinion on that. But I think if John Cohen would sit down and have a serious conversation with a group of people, which I don't know that if he's done that or not. I wouldn't think that he has. I've not heard anybody talk about it, and I'd love to be a part of that. And hey, it's not for me, and it's not even for as much of my teammates. I mean, we know what we did. We know we've been recognized. We know Auburn's recognized us in some form. We've got championship rings, but there's so many Auburn people out there that they go in that stadium and they see 2. And I don't think that they give us the credibility probably that the players and coaches on those teams really deserve for the effort they gave and the success they had. But it's only because all they know is what's in front of their face. And but going back to, the name of the game is recruiting. And I don't see how what we're doing now can do anything but hurt recruiting, where it's an opportunity lost. We could easily change that, and it would certainly help. It would help Auburn nationally, and it would help recruiting. I think it would go a long way to that.
Do you think Jay's thinking about 83 do you think his thought process was the same regarding 2004? Since he was the AD, I mean,
I really don't know. I haven't ever talked to him about that. I don't know. I mean, those are two different circumstances, simply because, it was a true beauty contest in 83.
Yeah.
Except for the real ones that did. I mean, part of me thinks we have a much more legitimate claim than Miami or Nebraska, because we all had the same record, and all the computer programs picked us because of what we did on the field and not how they felt emotionally after the games. So, who says the AP and the coaches poll have to be, the end all be all? But 2004 was the BCS era. And if I remember right, I think Southern Cal and Oklahoma were ranked 1 and 2 at the beginning of the season.
Correct.
We were back in the teens or somewhere.
17th, yeah.
And they never lost a game, so they never moved. And so that one was a little different in just that they didn't get the chance to play for it, Just like we didn't get to play Nebraska in 83 because the SEC was tied into the Sugar Bowl. Just dumb luck on our part. But the fact that Southern Cal got it taken away from them, to me, that absolutely means that we should step in and claim it.
Well, another crazy thing is the narrative. Like, to give you an idea, you're right. There are a lot of these national writers. They don't know come here from Sikkim when it comes to, Southern football. Buddy Davidson told me this in 1981. I was sitting out there. It's the first time I met him at a baseball game. I went down to Auburn. My dad took me down there for spring practice to talk about how we were going to get me into Auburn. So I'm talking to Buddy Davidson. I just met him. And he said, back when I was 10 years ago, we went to New York for the Heisman Roadshow to promote Pat Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I'm sitting there at a nice dinner talking, really more like listening to Howard Cosell, the greatest head rug of all time, I must admit. It's incredible. He said, Howard Cosell goes, how is Pat Sullivan from Auburn, a private school in Atlanta, going to ever win the Heisman Trophy? You think Howard's a lawyer from New York, supposed to be really the smartest man in the room. He goes, Howard, just for the record, and I'll have Shep Proudfoot vouch for me on this one. Auburn's a state university. It's in Alabama, although it's an hour and a half from Atlanta. And he goes, well, whatever. Ed Marinero will win it at Cornell because he's got the Eastern media. And do you remember, as a kid on Thursday night, Thanksgiving night, halftime of the Georgia Tech-Georgia game, Jimmy Ott and his partner from the Downtown Athletic Club, they said, we have one envelope here. Let's open it up. The winner is Pat Sullivan of Auburn. That's an O. The Yankees call it Auburn. And he didn't go up there. They celebrated at the Coliseum, but he didn't go up there for a week? And there's Suge sitting there drinking a scotch and water, smoking a cig next to John Wayne at the damn table.
Yeah.
You can't get better than that. I mean, but that's the narrative. They don't know. I mean, I just think Auburn people, Auburn's the 13th winningest football program in the history of college football. When y'all beat Georgia, and I was there in 83, 13-7, we were all chunking sugar cubes on the field.
That's
I'm sure
right.
y'all were mad at us. And I'll never forget that, watching that sun go down. And, man, I get chills talking about it. But Georgia's record in that 4-year run, 80-83, was 43-4-1. Y'all, the only people that beat them, they won 18 straight SEC games. And Auburn went up there and beat them 13-7. Remember, Quincy Williams recovered that ball. Lionel took a pitch out around the right end from you, down there, the little train. Hell, I remember meeting Lionel in 1979 when he was a recruit at the Mississippi State game that Auburn won 14-3, November 9th, 1979, kind of a rainy day. James Brooks. How much fun was it to have a guy like that in the backfield? But I think the more you know about your history, your traditions, and your heroes, Auburn's got incredible fan support, but I think it's time that they recognize these out of respect to all the people like Mike Donahue, who barely spoke English. He spoke Gaelic. Donahue Drive's pretty important at Auburn. You've walked down Donahue Drive before, hadn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
A few times.
Yeah.
You know, there's one other part of this conversation that I've really never heard anybody talk about. And I think this is extremely important too. If Auburn did recognize a lot more of these teams as champions, yeah, and did it proudly instead of kind of behind the scenes, it's almost like they want to whisper to the Auburn people, yeah, we know we did it, but we just don't want to shout it out to the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. But think about this. I mean, when one of our former football players is up for the College Football Hall of Fame,
yeah,
but they think, well, he played at Auburn, who's won 2 national championships. Or what if one of our players is up for the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame? I mean, we need to make Auburn as big and be as proud as we can of all our successes, because the tentacles reach out all over the place.
Right.
And I think, you know, I really think it would help in the promotion of all our former athletes, but also think about this. In 1983, if Auburn University had a lot bigger name in the world of college football, maybe we would have been voted ahead of Miami.
Correct.
Okay. Maybe if Auburn had a better tradition and name in the media, we would have been picked in 2004 to play against Southern Cal instead of Oklahoma getting picked.
Correct.
And so nobody to me is thinking long-term about that one thing, is how do we promote Auburn and get the recognition that we feel like we deserve? Because believe me, we love Auburn like crazy, but you can talk to a lot of Auburn people. You go out across the nation and you know, a lot of people like you, Cosell, didn't even know what state we're in.
Yeah.
A lot of people still don't know what state we're in.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one reason to do it, but it's not the number one reason. The number one reason is because it's the right thing to do. And the coaches and players that were on those teams that have already won the championships, and the NCAA recognizes the selectors that picked them, they need to be applauded and they need to be celebrated. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and this isn't any attack on anybody, not on Florida, not on Alabama or anything. They've all got, listen.
Doesn't have anything to do with any of them.
Yeah. We talk with a lot of Gators on this channel. We talk with a lot of Alabama people, and they've all got, they're proud. I live in Memphis, man. Tennessee, Ole Miss, again, they're claiming 3. And the way I look at it, Ole Miss, damn good. They beat Auburn about once every 12 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And they didn't ever beat Auburn at Auburn until 1999 it took an overtime, you know, for Corey Peterson to catch that pass. But, you know, Auburn right now, this is the worst, you know, cycle since the post-World War II era. I think for recruiting alone and branding, you're crazy not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, they're doing a lot of work on the north end zone. Maybe it's a good time. They got the construction crews in there. They could take care of it before football season.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
it's taken long enough on the north end zone. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on the renovation?
You know, Ronnie, I just don't think much about that, and I don't talk to people about it. I would think my best guess is that, you know, going to preferred seating and things like that, and probably would, help sell tickets or premium seating. All these stadiums are so big and prices keep going up, and it's so easy to watch it on TV. I mean, I still go to the games. I buy season tickets every year. Yeah. And we have a condo in Auburn, so it's a lot of fun for us to go down and see our friends and go to the game. And but I think, I'm sure there's some people probably that lost their seats based on what they're doing. I'm sure they're not happy about it, but I would think the premium seating is the way to go. I don't know. What do you think? You know a lot more about it than I do.
Well, I think that it's, the north end zone renovation is a number of years overdue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly. That damn scoreboard's been up since, I think I'm not even sure I was born yet.
Yeah.
I know it was there in the first game I went to, and that's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. I mean, everybody's moving to premium seating, and you can generate more money doing that.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's done a really nice job at the back of their stadium and kind of tying in a courtyard area. They've done a really nice job. I mean, a lot of the schools around the country and around the conference in particular, have done a really, really nice job of tying in the school and tying in the town and into the stadium and making the whole thing a really nice game day experience.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see Auburn do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many seats will be taken away? I know there'll be some, but is it a large number?
I'm not sure there's a final plan. I know that, the scoreboard's going up, and then the rest of it, I think, is still in development.
Yeah. Oh, Randy, you hear so many people talk about during the pandemic, college football, people will find other things to do. I got to tell you, if I'm sitting alone in my man cave every Saturday drinking a cooler full of beer, I'm going to go get help, man. I'm going to be down there. I mean, I used to get so excited as a kid to go down there. My parents said, it's not even worth you going to school today. Cause my teachers would be like, he's not paying attention,
Yeah.
So, and then in high school, we used to stop and they'd let us get like a 12-pack of beer, some hams, the ride from Montgomery up to Auburn. Fans have got to be there. And, there's 90,000 inside the stadium. But with all the tailgating now, I go over to 715 West Magnolia to the Sigma Newhouse. I go see my friend Janet Bell and Billy Roberts and there's tailgates everywhere. You can't get to them all. But we're social animals. And I think now there's maybe 90,000 inside Jordan-Hare. There's 60,000 tailgating outside during the games. People have absolutely no intention of going inside the stadium. They just want to be there. And I bet you and I and Ronnie can all claim that we've done a business deal or two just by being there.
Yeah. It's a wonderful atmosphere. It really is. And the connections that you make and people that you run into, I don't know. It's a special place for sure. And I know some people that go to the games just for the tailgates and don't ever go in the stadium. And I've thought about that myself, but I just don't want to miss out. The next time there's a kick six, I want to be there and see it.
Yeah.
Or Prayer and Jordan-Hare. I was at both of those games, and gosh, what an experience that was.
Yeah. Now I'm with you, and so you get into that. I want to ask you, and Ronnie, I'm just kind of trying to direct traffic here, but right now with Hugh Freeze, I don't think it's a stretch to say Auburn can win 10 games this year because you look 11-14 is not where you want to be after 2 years, but you think about it. LSU game in 23 was like 48-18. That was a nightmare. Now New Mexico State was a unicorn game in Auburn history. It still causes a lot of trauma. But other than that, Auburn's lost a lot of games by 7 points or less.
Yeah.
Last year, the kicking game, the worst I've ever seen, because I've been following, you go back to so many great kickers, Woody Woodall, Neil O'Donohue. We pulled him from St. Bernard's Abbey and Coleman. Shug did, was an All-American from Dublin. But Auburn only made 54% of the field goals last year. Let's say Auburn's in that 90% where they usually are.
Yeah.
That team's 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a reach to say they can win 10 this year with
Probably.
the roster being what it is?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what everybody else has.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you what, though, you look at the schedule and it's like everybody's good now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing is if you let your mind wander back to the good old days, you can look at the schedule and you say, well, that's a win, that's a win, that's a win. But things aren't really like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I can't ever tell, you know, who's going to have what. But I don't study it very close either. But I don't know. I would love to see something like that. I really would. And I hope two of those wins are Georgia and Alabama. So if they are, what are the two losses? You know? Yeah. But,
wow.
You know, I guess I feel like when I look at the SEC schedules now, that our schedule is not as hard compared to some other schools because we don't play LSU, we don't play Texas, we don't play Florida, we don't play Tennessee. We still play Georgia and Alabama, but, you know, Georgia's got to play Texas and Alabama. And I don't know who else they play, but
Ole Miss.
So
Florida.
It seemed like we had a run there for a number of years where our schedule was the hardest in the SEC every single year.
It only took 100 years to average out, right?
Yeah. I feel like
outright.
I feel like we're not quite in that situation now, which is helpful. But I don't know. I would love to see us be great on defense, great on kicking game. And, you know, I'd love to run the football just a little more just because we want to be tough, you know, and just, I don't care if we win games by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. I don't care if it's 3-2, 3-0. I just want to win.
We've seen 3-2 in 2008.
Was that Mississippi State?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah. 3-2.
You talk about brutal.
Yeah.
That set football back 50 years. It felt like, defensive struggle or two bad offenses. I think it was the latter. I don't know, but
pretty sure it was the latter.
Yeah,
it was pretty brutal.
So what are your guys' opinions on the three quarterbacks? I mean, who is it? Daniels that's coming in? Is that his name?
Stanford. Yeah.
Yeah. So is he here this summer?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So he's there working out and all.
Well, I think the quarterback room is better than it's been in quite a while. I mean, I think you've got, you know, in addition to him, you've got two other guys who can really, really play.
Yeah.
So, you know, it should be a fun fall. I mean, I think that, you know, it's been a long time since Auburn's had 5 straight losing seasons. So hopefully, that can change this season. My guess is that, look, I mean, I think that, and I like Hugh Freeze. I think he's doing a good job recruiting. I think he's doing a good job if you look at, certainly compared to what he walked into.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, look, we've all been around this long enough. I mean, you end up 5-7 or 6-6, then it's going to get hot. You know, I mean, I think he probably needs to win at least 8 to kind of keep everybody at bay.
Yeah. At least to keep the conversation away from that. You know, I'm not a fan of all the revolving door coaches and paying coaches not to coach and all that crap, you know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, he's won other places he's been. There's no reason why he shouldn't win at Auburn.
Yeah. You mentioned running the ball, Randy. A well-known defensive coordinator who we both know told me not too long ago, he said, you know, Freeze just can't help himself. He said, you know, and we were talking about Jarquez last year. He's like, just hand the damn ball off to him. He's like, but he can't help himself. His default is to throw the ball. He likes to throw the ball, and that's when it comes crunch time, he'd rather throw it for 3 yards than run it for 3 yards.
Yeah,
and maybe that's the case.
Yeah,
Ronnie and Randy, you think about the quarterback position. You know, I get to talk on our channel. I was on Shane Matthews' show a few weeks ago. I think he was number 6 on the depth chart. And someone asked Steve Spurrier before his first season in 1990, do you know who your starting quarterback is? And Spurrier said, hell, I don't know, but I can promise you this, whoever he is, he'll lead the SEC in passing. You know, you were there Charlie Thomas out of Thomasville, Georgia. Todd Rubley out of Davenport, Iowa was there. Charlie Trotman. We love Charlie. It was amazing. And it was pretty crowded. But what did Coach Dye used to say? Sooner or later, the race goes to the horse who thinks he can win. And there's a reason they put blinders on those damn horses at the Derby.
Yeah.
You know? There's a reason why.
Yeah.
So talk about Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
He comes out of high school, Dallas, Fort Worth, that damn term, I got to use it and I hate it, the Metroplex. Denton, Texas, number 4 quarterback in America, number 10 overall player, most highly rated offensive recruit signed in Oklahoma history. And they've signed some good ones. Now, I think Billy Hooks was 32 when he was a senior, but I can remember him out of Hooks, Texas. I can remember Adrian Peterson out of Palestine, Texas. That's a lot. That's powerful stuff. He goes to Oklahoma. He backs up Dylan Gabriel. Then Dylan leaves for Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
All 5 starting offensive linemen out. Top 6 receivers hurt. September 21st, he loses his job in the second quarter in that home game, the first SEC game in Norman, to the freshman legacy Michael Hawkins. So mentally, kind of take us through that journey, because you're tougher than a nickel steak. I mean, you're just, you weren't 6'4", 235 like they, you're just tougher than hell. Talk about the rewiring that maybe needs to be done for Jackson, but he's certainly got better weapons around him and a better offensive line. And you had, by the end of the year, you can name them all. Yan Cowart. I love Yan.
Yeah.
He's our architect since my dad's retired.
Yeah.
Jeff Lott out of Hall County, Georgia. Randy Stokes out of Tallahassee. Steve Wallace out of Chamblee. Jeff Parks out of Gardendale. Bunch of freshmen were starting on Bo over the top, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting excited about this stuff. Sorry.
I think, when you have a lot of adversity, you can go one way or the other. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I certainly had my share of adversity at Auburn. Not so much my first year. We had 11 quarterbacks when I signed, and 5 of them were freshmen. And they moved 2 of them to defense after about 3 days, so I moved from 11 to 9. But we had a JV team. We all played JVs, and then the next 2 years I got hurt both years. I got up to like second string twice, and got hurt both times, and kind of lost my opportunity until my redshirt junior year. But I can remember one of mine and Jay Jacobs' favorite stories. It was after some brutal practice, in spring of 81 or 82. I don't remember which year. And everybody's quit. I guess it was 81. Everybody was quitting, and we're jogging off the field. And Jay looked at me and he said, "You going to leave?" And I said, "I'm not leaving. Are you going to leave?" He said, "No." He said, "I think we're going to stay around here and be a thorn in their side," talking about the coaches. So our mentality was, you couldn't run us off. You can't run us off no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that, that Jay was a leader, and, I hope I was. And by default, if you're the quarterback, you have to be in some situations. But anyway, I think, going back to Jackson Arnold, he's had some adversity. So it'll be, interestingly for him, he's got a whole new, a change of scenery, a whole new thing. And that ought to help him reset. And I do think he's going to be surrounded with a lot better players. And that, I don't care who you are. Bo Nix is a first-round draft pick, and he played a whole lot better at Oregon than he did at Auburn because of the people that he had around him.
Yeah.
And if he, I coached Patrick one year in '92. He was our second-string quarterback when I was quarterback coach at Auburn, and know their whole family and have known them for a long, long time. And but if Bo had stayed at Auburn, what round would he have been drafted in? Based on how those seasons would have turned out with the quality, athletes we had on our football team. So,
not to mention the coaches.
Yeah, I know a lot of people blame him for leaving. I don't necessarily, I guarantee he still loves Auburn. But going back to Jackson Arnold, I think he's got a chance to really, maybe this reset for him, if we're a lot better personnel wise, and he gains some confidence if we win some games early, maybe we can have a really special year, because if he starts feeling some confidence and playing like he's capable of playing, then we ought to be pretty set at that position for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's also something to be said for, I know some of the coaches out at Oklahoma, and the feeling in the building is that they like the kid they signed from Washington State better than Jackson Arnold. But there's a big difference in, Rob, like you said, you lose that many offensive linemen, you lose that many receivers, you got an offensive coordinator you didn't believe in, and all of a sudden, you're at a different place in a completely different environment. And Randy, you can speak to this better than I can, but if you're around people that you can trust, you've got players around you can trust, you got coaches around you can trust, you play a lot better than if you do if you've like we looked in '98 when we didn't have any offensive line or any running backs.
Hey, case in point, my freshman year at Auburn in '79, we played 4 JV games, and we won 1 and lost 3. And Florida State beat us 62-14.
Wow.
Those same guys were on the team that went 11-1 and won the SEC championship and a national championship. And I don't want to leave this out. The one game we won is we beat Alabama.
Yeah.
In Jordan-Hare, 21-7 in a pouring rainstorm.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That 83 Florida State game, Kelly Lowry was their quarterback.
Yeah.
And guy that I knew from Memphis, Brian McCrary, his older brother Conrad played at Ole Miss. Brian was about my height, when he played in college, he was 5'9", 168 pounds. And Brian was a badass. I mean, he was a pound for pound. He's like, I think the toughest player pound for pound, and you got to be one of them, is David Langner.
Yeah.
Out of Woodlawn. I knew people, friend of mine, Joe Passantino from John Carroll in Birmingham, walked on at Auburn. He goes, I got hit one time by that guy. He hit me so hard, I woke up, thought I was in France.
Yeah.
But by the way, Woodlawn High School, Greg Gant is into punt. David Langner, Langner and Gant were high school teammates at Woodlawn.
Wow.
People forget about that. But you think about
Rob's like an encyclopedia. He's like Philip.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad calls me an idiot savant. He says, somehow you got to turn that into money. But I think the cool thing about what you just said is tough. And you look at Deuce Knight. Deuce is at Lucedale, George County, Mississippi. That's the old way you used to take the Destin from Memphis on 98. I'm thinking about also this, you talk about Josh Daniels, I think. He's at Stanford. He was at Buford High School up there, Atlanta Metro. There's pretty good quarterbacks. How hard is it to take a kid who had a year like you talked about at Oklahoma and get his confidence back? And I mean, because Pat Sullivan told me one time that he couldn't play as a freshman, and he's glad he didn't. He said, because if I went on the road to Florida or Georgia or Tennessee and had a bad game, he goes, they may never be able to get me to come back out of my shell. It's scary. It
is. It is. I mean, there's a lot on the line. There really is. And, it's when you have some adversity, it's hard. It's not, it's very hard. And I think I hope that one thing that will help him is if he gets close to a lot of the other players on the team and they have really good team chemistry and they care about each other, love each other, that'll help more than anything. It really will, because if they, if he knows they believe in him, that's the biggest thing. If he thinks his teammates believe in him, then that's how you get through that. And that's how you overcome the bad year at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But he's got to earn that, and maybe he already has through winter workouts and spring training and this summer, but he's got to earn that. And if he can get that, he'll be dynamite.
Yeah. How many three-a-days did you guys have in '83?
I think we just did it the first week. But it was, we had kicking game practice for like an hour early, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you weren't in the kicking game, they had you doing regular stuff, Yeah. And then we came back out like 9:30 to 12 for our morning practice, and then came back at 3:30 or 4 for the afternoon practice. It was brutal.
Yeah, when we were in Florida, we'd bring the older guys in first, and we'd have kicking in the middle, right, and then bring the younger guys in. That way we have a joint practice for special teams, and then we turn around and do the same thing at night. And the players, it wasn't too bad, but the coaches, we were worn ass out. We were out there,
Oh yeah. We know Jeff Berger told me that in '85 when Auburn went to the I, that they had 4 practices a day for some period of time, and because they were implementing a more robust pass game, off the I formation, because we didn't throw it but a dozen times a game on the average, and they were probably going to throw it 20 times a game, and so their 4th practice was basically, a 7-on-7 at night.
Wow.
So, but you know what? I think Berger liked that offense so much better than the wishbone. I think he would have practiced 4 times a day the whole season if they let him.
Yeah. Randy, you talk about clutch. Everybody talks about what's the biggest play in the modern era of Auburn football. I think the biggest play is 4th down and 16. Mike Edwards, number 89, wide receiver, Bradenton, Florida, Manatee High School, makes that catch. And I think you got popped on that play. It was – I think – I want to ask you another thing. We're about out of time, but
yeah,
the mind of a quarterback in today's world, they expect them to come in. We know about the pressure on Arch Manning. If you were coaching right now, how do you keep the second and third team guys? You talked about 11. How do you keep these guys around to believe in something bigger than the next best check?
Gosh, I wish I knew.
Well, we all do.
I hope somebody at Auburn knows.
Yeah.
I actually asked somebody that the other day, that it wasn't anybody on Auburn's staff, but it was a person that he knows a lot about Auburn football and things. And I asked him that question. He's always got really good insight. But my question was more of how do we keep other schools from poaching like Deuce Knight if he's just a freshman? Yeah. I guess Arnold's got 2 years, right?
3.
In today's world, he might have a decade. I mean,
yeah. Does he have 3?
I think he has 3. He redshirted the first year, right?
Yes.
And then played last year.
Yeah, he does have 3.
My question was just how do you keep the other guy around?
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I don't know that. But the coaches have such a tough job. It's unbelievable, the job. I coached 5 years, and it was nothing like this. We worked a lot of hours. But, Ronnie, you coached for a long time. Can you imagine? They really need – to me, the next step is you hire a whole new staff of 10 or 12, whatever you need, and they recruit like NFL scouts. But all they do is recruit. And then the coaches that coach on the field don't have to do that anymore, and they just see the recruits when they come on campus so they can get to know them. But these guys are working 2 jobs to me. I know they're getting paid a lot, but still –
Well, and there's never any downtime. I remember we had official visits. You'd have a few during the season, and then we'd wrap up as soon as the season was over, and then we'd line up and get everything done. These guys are having official visits all summer long. There's no break for them, and they're making a lot of money, but they're also making a lot of. I don't think people realize, from a coaching standpoint. Ron Zuckow has a great quote. There are 2 kinds of coaches' wives: great ones and ex ones. And they either get it or they don't. And when you start having 2, 3, 4, 5 kids or whatever you have, and you're moving them every 3 years, and you're having to pack up your house and do this and do that, and everybody's your kids go to school and everybody's telling them how terrible their dad is and how terrible the boss is and on and on. It's a it's a lot for families to handle. And again, they're making a lot of money, but there's a lot on coaches and a lot on their families in this environment.
Rob, going back to what you said though. These coaches have to be sitting in the room in their meetings saying, okay, do we go hard after this high school quarterback that's a great player, Or do we just let somebody else get him and we'll recruit him in 2 years? You know, let him go to Ole Miss or let him go somewhere else. And then if he doesn't play there, and, you know, like if you knew they had a quarterback that was their starter that had 2 years left, maybe you should just let him go there and then try to get him to come to your school after he's been there. I don't know how. I guess I know Freeze's philosophy is to still try to recruit a lot of high school players.
Yeah.
Other coaches like Lane Kiffin, he's doing the exact opposite, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
The coach at Vanderbilt basically turned their program around by signing almost all transfers, right?
It's a crazy
2 years ago or something. It was nuts.
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But it's a crazy. Again, I mean, Coach Saban's right. You know, if he talks about, you know, the more times a kid transfers, the less likely he is to graduate.
Yeah.
You got kids transferring 4 times.
Yeah.
The chances of him actually getting a degree and being a student athlete are pretty slim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you recruit the right kind of kids, and I think, you know, you recruit the right kind of kid. You recruit the kid who wants to get a degree and who really buys into what you're selling, not only coaching staff wise and locker room wise, but campus wise. I think you've got a lot better chance of holding on to those kinds of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, about out of time, but I think we had David Bartu, College Football Matrix. He works with college and pro teams on staffing stuff. He said Monday, he said, big red flag for NFL execs, guys transferring down versus, you know, a lateral.
Yeah.
But also, how are you going to, you know, the guys that you went to school with, and I was there when you were there, you're close, because 37 guys left Auburn that first spring of 1981. 37.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's the guys that stuck around, Pat Arrington, David Jordan, you know, then you brought all those freshmen in. I mean, it defined who you are by how tough, and you didn't quit. I mean, that's why I think there's a myth you can't coach kids hard today. I think they're craving being coached hard.
Yeah.
Just ask Rick Trickett.
Yeah. That's right. Randy, we got to get you back on. I mean, he said you were coming on today. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, anytime. I love this.
And you got the Google Chrome. I mean,
I'm ready now.
Brendan was telling me for months, and I didn't understand what he meant. When I flipped to it, I said, man, this is like having a microwave instead of having to heat something up in the oven. Man, this is Randy. Thank you for bringing Randy Campbell on here. Man, this has been fantastic. Really look forward. Thank you more than you know.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Enjoy it, Randy. Thank you.
Hey, Ronnie. Thanks.
Next week, watch AU Undercover. There are 97.2 million page views last year. Let's break that record this year. I'll account for about 1 million of them myself. Take care.